Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The weekend is fast approaching, the relaxing period of the week, and of course, FPL. Today, we have Solving Your Problems, the Game Week 7 edition, and I will be going over, in a quick fire style, all of the things that you need to know and solving your problems. Of course, if you could consider subscribing, that would be great. We are so close to 3,000, and it would be fantastic to have it done by the Game Week 7 deadline. As you can see, very strong start, team looking in good shape, and up to 342k. Nothing else needs to be said, so let's get into the video. Right, we are going to start with some Liverpool discussion, specifically Diaz and Salah, but to be honest, I could have put Trent and Robertson in there as well. Now, we'll start with Diaz. A lot of people are thinking of selling him. I've seen that. People are worried about his expected minutes. To that, I say the game is at 12:30, and what I realize is you should get a leak, and I think that is a huge pivotal piece of information. He also just had a rise as well. So in terms of price drops and price falls elsewhere, you should be okay. I still like Diaz as an asset. Obviously, my initial issue with him was his expected minutes, and that's sort of come to fruition now, especially with Gakpo looking relatively sharp. But overall, in terms of the attacking prospects you get when he's on the pitch, it's solid. I wouldn't mind keeping him for this week, unless you have a really high expectation of the Spurs boys or Bowen, which we'll come on to later. So if you do have a high expectation of them, if you're high on the likes of Mbeumo as well, who you may not have, then sure, I don't mind it as a potential exit route to some of them, especially given he's more expensive than pretty much all of them now, so he frees up cash. But I don't think this is as necessary of a transfer as people are making out to be, even if he is to get 60 minutes. Look, Liverpool have a decent chance of keeping a clean sheet there. Maybe he starts at a baseline of 3. He's playing really well. He looks sharp. Palace look poor defensively. Maybe you can get a return, right? So I would say I'm on the fence with Diaz, bit 50-50. Not as necessary a sell, though, I think, as it's being made out to be. Now let's move on to the big boy, Mohamed Salah. Obviously got a goal midweek in the Champions League, got a goal against Wolves, and I'm still more bullish on him than most other people are. I like his prospects against Palace. I like his prospects going down the line. For example, Chelsea, right? That is a system which is certainly exploitable by just genuine attacking talent. Not even a specific system, not a specific matchup, but just genuine attacking talent for a variety of reasons, which we can discuss later, commonly next week. When we look at captaincy, although it probably will be harder when it's Wolves away. I like it, right? Obviously, the Arsenal fixture in 9 isn't great, but I do think you could get the better of Calafiori. We've seen it twice now. I saw it against Savio, where he was just a little bit slow. And he's obviously taller, so he's got a worse turning radius than say Timber, right? So, or at least it's for him to turn it slower. So with that in mind, I've seen him get done by one right winger. I saw Hakimi blitz him on the outside as well. And with Salah's physical makeup and genuine quality as well, I think you could have Calafiori quite a tough time down that flank. And for those reasons, I wouldn't be surprised to see him return. Also, if you're still playing Partey in the middle, you're always going to be a little bit susceptible in some format, whether that be transition because Partey doesn't have the legs, or just generally because he's not, I guess, as good of a duel as maybe you would want in that Arsenal side for the top games, right? So with all that in mind, I think he'll do well there. And then it's like Villa, Brighton, Southampton. All of those games are games which have a high stylistic suitability for him. So I don't think you necessarily need to sell him. And I don't think his prospects are anywhere near as bad as maybe fixture difficulty ratings are making out, or models, or just general people. Of course, he is the exit route to Saka in many cases, right? I would say if you're going to do it, like, you probably want to be doing it for a Saka captain. I don't think I'd be doing it for free, though. I think I'd rather have the transfer over the IB. And you know what? Do I expect Saka to outscore Salah? Yes, of course, because I've captained him. But I don't think when you factor in probabilities, risk, and all of that, and the usage of a transfer, it's necessarily worth the move when you don't own at least one of them. I was just looking at a few other teams trying to help some people. And what I noticed is that people are very, very, very reluctant to play a 4 at the back in any game week, which I understand because this year it's definitely been optimal to play 3 at the back. And in general, they're quite trigger happy on benching Rodgers. Me, on the other hand, I disagree with both of those claims. Look, I would definitely rather play a 3 at the back. But I think to play a 4 at the back in 1 week and field one of your 4.0 defenders when the fixtures are okay, I think it's fine, right? Like, I see spots where people are taking hits and removing genuinely good assets just to facilitate another good asset and refusing to play their bench option. We're going into the IB. A transfer probably has greater weight, I would say, going into this period. And in general, a lot of the spots that people have, given the squads are relatively deep, I don't think they need to be making these transfers. For example, I'll see Greaves and Wout Faes not used at all. I don't mind playing him. Sure, I expect West Ham and Bournemouth to score, right? But, like, got to factor in there's some chance of a clean sheet. and you can't have the optimal team every single week. It's very difficult. So for the people in those specific spots, that's just something I wanted to say, because playing a back four, whilst not ideal, is okay just for 1 week. Going back to Rodgers, I think people are too happy to bench him, and I think people would view it really differently if they'd spent 6.5 on him as opposed to 5.1. And I see him as a 6.5 asset, really. I mean, now he started to generate output, right? 2 assists against Wolves. Well taken goal against it. Good composure, good touch in the box, good finishing, good strike, etc. Right? Good positioning just in general, given they're playing like a 4-2-2 and he's up top with Watkins. Even if he is like the 10, has to do a bit more running, carrying in general. And I think he'll do a decent amount of carrying against United, but you can get through them pretty easily as Van de Ven showed. So I don't think it'll be anywhere close to the same responsibility or negative effect on his output as it was against Arsenal, right? And even if it is, he's still got enough quality and just carrying quality as well to get there. So I think people are framing it to themselves in the wrong way. Whereas if he was a 6.5 asset, they'd never bench him because they just value him more because they paid more for him. There's actually this is a psychology bias. I read this somewhere. I don't remember what it's called, but this is some form of a psychology bias where you attribute more weight and value to what you currently own as opposed to what you don't. It's something similar along the lines of loss aversion, a topic relevant to that. Anyway, for those reasons, I don't think you'd be wanting to bench Rodgers because of how poor Man United look as well. I think when sides are going away, they're traditionally worse. So I wouldn't even mind benching like someone that you've got who's playing away, for example. And I think even benching Dominic Calvert-Lewin is not such a bad idea against the Newcastle side that look better. They've got injured players back. Obviously, Isak's missing, but the main thing for me is that Eddie Howe's shown some versatility with his structure and system, and then also you've shown the brilliance of the midfield of Gnarly, Bruno, and Joel Linton, which I think is a big deal. So I'd just be careful about benching Rodgers. I really don't. I wouldn't feel safe with him there. I think he can definitely get a haul against. In terms of the game as well, it's set up quite nicely for him to thrive, just given United are susceptible to teams running straight through them, given the way they set up and the distances, especially between the block. Slightly rambly there, so I apologize. Let's move on to captaincy. Now, what I've done is here, I've established a framework, which I'm going to run you through to justify the Saka captaincy to myself. I will also explain it to you, so you'll see where I'm at. And then we'll also have a little bit of discussion about Kai Havertz, because on the video I filmed with Jack on the Fantasy Football Hub channel, if you'd like to check that out. In my own videos, and in the comments, quite a few people, at least like 10, were like, Havertz, captain. So I'll give it some discussion. And it definitely warrants it. Okay, so you'll see there, you can see how I've attributed the downside and upside. But how have I got there? Okay, I think the minimum, using somewhat of a realistic perspective, that Saka is going to get is 7 points. 3 points, well, 2 points for playing, 1 point for the assist, 1 point for the assist, 1 point for the clean sheet point, which I think is very fair, right? I expect Arsenal to keep a clean sheet. An assist, that's 6, and then 1 bonus point 7 because he's so good on the bonus point system. And I expect Arsenal to score quite a few goals. And if he's only getting 1 assist, you can imagine someone potentially has a brace or a goal and assist, etc. And maybe a clean sheet and a goal. So that's where I have him at 7. I'm capping Haaland at 13, a brace. That's very generous. No model would give him that. And yeah, sure, of course he can go and score more than that. But for reasons I have touched on, including 2 physical centre-backs, no Rodri, lower ball circulation when breaking down a deep block, no De Bruyne, so instead of having a pass-heavy behind him, you have a shoot-heavy Foden, a good shot stopper, which I actually think matters, even though his finishing has been very, very good this year. I guess over the long period, it maybe hasn't been as sharp, and therefore, like, he's just matching his XG, right, which I think he should be slightly better than. And as a result, I think having a good shot-stopping keeper is actually quite beneficial against someone like Haaland, just to keep the volume of goals down. Like I said, though, he's been unreal this year in terms of finishing. So if he were to continue that, I could not be surprised. He missed one midweek, for example, that he should score. And he still has that in his game, just a little bit, which is something I like when it comes to looking at Leno. I do have concerns. I think Fulham's pivot is a concern in front of them. I wonder if Emil Smith-Rowe could be benched, which I would like to facilitate Sander Berg, and then you can have Pereira higher for his range passing to almost as an outlet on transition. Those are just some ideas I have, but I am not the Fulham coach. So for those reasons, like, I'm capping him at 13, and I think that's fair. Like, giving him 13 is fair. Therefore, my downside is 7 points. That's how I have it. I have it at 6 to 10, just in case, Saka could blank and only get 3 points, and Haaland could get 13 and up to 10. I'm not going to give a Saka blank and a Haaland hat trick because I think that is so unrealistic. That is where we border on just getting a bit ridiculous. So I'll cap it at 10, right? Downside in terms of the 3 to place 13. The upside minimum of 8 because I think that Saka can get genuinely get 3 returns in this game. Even if we give him a goal and 2 assists, which is fair enough, right? Like an assist from open play, he creates so much anyway. Assists from set pieces, the best set piece team in the league, and then just a goal, right? That's fair. That would get him at like 17 points, and then you get Haaland a goal and 4 bonus. I'm still giving Haaland a goal and 4 bonus. Then he gets 9, and that's an 8 difference. The 18 pointer is basically Saka gets like a 20 point Haaland blanks, which I actually don't think is out of the question. Like, I'm not surprised if it happens, but that is just like at the top of my range before I start to say it's unrealistic. People's argument will be that Saka is not a high ceiling player, really. He is someone who just doesn't get those huge hauls because he's not scoring enough goals, right? My argument is, to counter that, just for this game, just for this one game, with what Southampton are going to provide, given that he can press high, given that he should be stationed high, given that they can turn over the ball high, given that there's no Odegaard, so he should have the dominion of that, not just the right half space, just that right side in general, and the attacking dynamics I expect Arsenal to use, not similar to the ones against PSG, where you had Havertz dropping into that right 8, rather he'll be stationed higher up the pitch, and Saka can have that space if he so wishes, and maybe an 8 deeper, and then a fullback overlapping, because why not, right? Makes sense in terms of the attacking dynamics. Then I think, okay, he can definitely score more goals. So it's just for this one fixture. In terms of Havertz, look, I love Havertz as a player. You know that. I started with him. I was trying to big him up all preseason. The only thing with me for Havertz is his finishing. It hasn't been that good this season. He should have had maybe a bit more against Brighton. To be fair, he actually did okay. Like, the goal was well taken, and obviously the red card didn't help. But I think he could have had a bit more against Brighton. Villa, like, sort of, there were a couple instances of a corner where he basically missed like a half open goal, which he should have scored. That went under the radar. The referee blew the whistle. There was one chance where Rice played him in, and he should have done him better. Against Leicester, he should have scored more. Like, and I've just watched him enough times. I think I've watched pretty many games to know that, like, finishing wise, it could be a lot better. And that just worries me because he is a forward, right? So he's getting 1 less point for a goal compared to a midfielder. He's getting 1 less point for the clean sheet as well. He's just not available to get that. So for those reasons, I have him below Saka. However, if you are bullish enough to think he gets 2 returns, which is very fair, right? He definitely could. And it's mainly about him getting that goal. Then yeah, by all means, I think you can do it. I like it overall. I just like Saka a little bit more for the security of being a mid. Right, let's go on to what I like to call some important stuff. There's a few discussion points. We'll go over them quickly, and then we on to the last bit. Cole Palmer, just to recap, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't get him this week. I think the 4 games he's returned in out of the last 5 have been really good in terms of stylistic suitability and what the opposition have provided. Wolves' game model, Brighton's game model, Palace's game model, and just less so their game model, but more so their performance at the moment and how the side is interacting within that system. And the last one's not spring. Oh, West Ham as well. Like, they've been really, really, really poor, right? And hugely susceptible to Jackson and Park. Definitely exploited, okay? Whereas now you got Forest, deep block, good engines in the middle, dual heavy, less space for him, playing against more robust players, will have less time, etc., etc. Even Murillo, like, when the ball is in these like midfield pockets, he's really, really aggressive, and he steps up quite well, and he anticipates quite well. Moreno did a good job against Salah, so if Palmer is to drift to that right side ever, I don't think it's like an easy task for him. So for all those reasons, I don't think it's an easy fixture, right? Then you've got like Liverpool after. Look, it is a fixture in a way which is pretty decent for him, but Liverpool away is not something I'm ever really going to classify. Even Haaland has really struggled there, right? And that pretty much says everything, even with Klopp's high line, his style of play. So yeah, I don't like that. And then you've got Newcastle and United after. Now, Newcastle could actually be quite tough if they use a similar system against City, and their midfielders again, Tonali, Bruno, Linton, Jacob Murphy at right wing. That isn't easy. And then, okay, United, yeah, sure, you could run ringers round on if they're playing this badly. But then it's Arsenal, which is the worst fixture. So with the fixtures being that bad, and the exit routes, which is really important, with the exit routes being difficult, this week especially, and the fact you're not going to captain him, let it ride a week. Just see what he does against Forest. Give him a harder game and be like, okay, now you go. Which you probably will, right? But about FPL, not just his. DCL versus McNeil. I've just seen this tossed around a bit. I will go DCL for the structure, purely for the structure. I think you can get more mids in there that are of the higher price points, and you can have at least one cheap forward, just because the cheap forward is still going to be really good on the bonus system. Whereas these cheaper mids, they'll have to compete a little bit more to be better on the bonus system, and they're not going to be generating at least, right? So with DCL being able to score and get max bonus, I prefer him, and also in terms of the structure. Trossard and Martinelli, good short-term upside for Trossard. I wouldn't be surprised Martinelli's bench. Nice game to give Sterling a run out and a first start. Trossard is really, really good in this new role. If you're willing to accept the short-term risk, I guess. But to be fair, I wouldn't even be surprised if Odegaard misses Bournemouth as well. I think he could even miss the game after that, which is like Liverpool at home. And Trossard would definitely play that. So he's looked good in this 8 role. He's cheap. If you want to go there, I'm actually getting more bullish on the Trossard move. I don't like the Martinelli move because even though the left-hand side dynamics have improved, I don't think they've improved to the extent to offset his expected minutes when Havertz and Saka exist, and then Trossard's a decent bit cheaper. It's a good way of framing all of that. Rodgers versus Wood, just something I've seen in terms of who to bench. I would bench Wood. Chelsea's a harder fixture. Fair bit harder fixture at the moment. Rodgers at home. Rodgers also a midfielder, who I think can get 2 returns, hence why I put that in. So yeah, Liam Delap. On the fence. I'm on the fence. Fixtures are good. He'll score goals. It's just, I don't know if I want to trust promoted sides that much this year. There is a decent disparity. Like, look, Leicester and Ipswich are better than Southampton. And also defensively, when you go there, they can be tough to play against. And Ipswich created a decent amount. But in the away fixtures, I really do worry for them. I just don't think they'll have much success at all. I think when you have the likes of even Cunha for like $1 million more, try and find it. Even like DCL Wood for like $500,000 more, try and find it. I would say it's worth it. So for me, I personally say no, although it's not the worst. Hits. Now, I've actually taken a hit this season, and barely anyone has, at least in terms of engaged managers, content creators, 360, etc., right? I'm still pretty anti it, though. I don't think you really need to in most spots. I think when you're looking to be super aggressive, like I was, yeah, fine, okay, because at least the upside's there. But when you're not, and you're doing it for like defenders, really worth it. So in general, I would stay away. But if you want to be super aggressive, you can. Even though others aren't, I don't think you should conform to groupthink and, you know, be scared because others aren't. But just don't do it without the aggressive upside. Lastly, let's just finish with Tottenham. And just in general, I try to make these videos a little bit quicker. You've obviously got the preview, and you've had a decent amount of content from me, right? So I could go over everything a little bit slower and in more detail. But for these, I think you guys just want slightly more quicker answers. So that's why I tend to go a bit quicker and maybe skip out some of the real depth that I would in the preview, hence why the video time is also. So if you would like that change, you can let me know. But honestly, I think this works better for now. So with regards to Spurs, there's obviously a lot of assets people are considering. I like Pedro Porro a lot in isolation, right? And this was a big thing I talked about preseason. In isolation, I liked a lot of assets. But when Pedro Porro is 0.4 million less than Guardiola, can you really justify him? When it's so advantageous to have at least 4.5-ish million defender in your side, can you really justify him when there's also Gabriel there, who is pretty much, in my opinion, essential and the best defender in the game? I think not. I think it's very difficult to, especially given the structure in Guardiola. So for those reasons, I would probably avoid. However, if you are to buy him, I think it's absolutely fine. I don't think it's optimal, but I think it's pretty close, if not very close, to maybe the second best option. So your opportunity cost is minimal, I would say, ish, depending on how high you have Gabriel, but mainly Guardiola. I would say maybe the attacking threat. No, probably the attacking threat goes down, right? Because, for example, against United, when Spurs and Maddison play together, they build in a 2-1 with Bentancur single pivot. It becomes a box when either Kulusevski or Maddison drop in to help with build-up, and they have more quality in the second phase to help you progress quicker. So for all those reasons, and then Porro goes wider, and he doesn't make significant advancements into that right half space because Kulusevski's competent within that zone in terms of attacking, right? So I think you'll probably get a little bit less attacking output, or at least attacking instances from him, but I think that will help the clean sheet go up, and defensive transition, they won't be as bad or susceptible. That's just my roundup. Maddison, I think he's too expensive. For someone with his goal threat, lack of goal threat, compared to other mids, I just think too expensive, and the expected minutes aren't really there. Kulusevski, on the other hand, is cheaper and does have the expected minutes. I'd say he has a higher goal threat, lower assist threat, and he's someone I actually don't mind as a punt, as long as you accept the risk, because there's a decent spread of output at Spurs already, and he's not a killer in terms of output, so there will be games where he blinds, even if he plays well. I think you have to accept that. Solanke is my favorite. Safe, good price, will do decently on the bonus point system, but he hasn't been great so far. And yeah, Ange number 9 will always generate charge. Right? So quite safe, I think. His ceiling worries me slightly at the moment, just because he doesn't really look as sharp as I would like. But if he ever does click, which I imagine he does, yeah, then you have a really, really, really good prospect. And by the way, the thing with them is their next 5 fixtures are beautiful for attacking prospects. That's why I'd be more partial to attaining one of them. Johnson is tough because, yeah, he looks good at the moment and he's scoring a lot of goals, but the expected minutes aren't really there. But then the price is pretty good. But then an Ange right winger is never the most attractive position for someone in your midfield to generate points, albeit the right wing role hasn't been as restricted like recently. Maybe Johnson's just made it look like that. So again, with him and Kulusevski, I think you're taking risk. As long as you understand that, there is also outside, but as long as you understand that, and there's also value for money, if you understand that, then I think that's okay. And that's all I really have to say on the Spurs, boys. And that is all she wrote for today. And also for Game Week 7. I will, of course, be in the comments replying to all of them, which are appropriate, and trying to help you out. This is the team, and this is how I will line up for Game Week 7. Now, if there are any last-minute changes, I'll tweet it out. I'll put it on YouTube as well in the form of a post. However, highly, highly unlikely. I usually, before my team selection, I have my real deep thinking, and I arrive at what I think I'm going to settle on. And that's about it. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the content this week. If you have, consider liking the video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. We're so close to 3,000. And considering dropping a comment. I really do enjoy speaking to you guys in the comment section. It's slightly different to Twitter. I think I prefer the comment section here at the moment. More open to discussion, at least, and generally just friendly. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful weekend. Make sure to make it a great weekend. Do something that your future self would be happy you did. And I shall see you on the other side for the Game Week 8 transfer plans on Sunday. Goodbye.